I still remember how quiet the house sounded that Christmas morning, not peaceful. Just empty in a way that made every word feel louder than it should. My suitcase was already by the front door before anyone spoke. I hadn't packed it. My mother had. She folded my clothes neatly, as though kindness could soften what she was about to do. "We think it's time," she said. My father never looked directly at me. He stared into his coffee like it required all of his attention. My younger sister leaned against the hallway wall wearing the sweater Grandma had knitted years before she passed away. She smiled. Not triumphantly, not dramatically. Just with the confidence of someone who believed life had finally arranged itself correctly. "Good luck starting over." Those 4 words followed me long after the front door closed behind me. The cold hit first. Then the silence. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, watching families carry wrapped presents through snowy parking lots. Everywhere I looked, people seemed to be arriving somewhere. I had nowhere to arrive. My wallet contained less money than I'd hoped. My phone held no messages asking where I was. The only thing I couldn't stop touching was a small leather envelope tucked inside my coat pocket. Grandpa had given it to me 2 weeks before he died. One day he'd said quietly, "Take this to the bank, don't lose it." I had laughed at the time. "I won't," he smiled. "I know." After the funeral, life became noisy. Paperwork. Family arguments. Meals nobody enjoyed. The envelope stayed forgotten in a drawer until I grabbed it that morning without really knowing why. It wasn't hope. It was simply the last thing anyone had ever trusted me with. The bank was almost empty because of the holiday schedule. The receptionist looked sympathetic when I explained I had an appointment request involving documents left by my grandfather. A few minutes later, the branch manager invited me into his office. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was an old account certificate, several notarized letters, and identification documents. He read them once, then again. Without saying a word, he stood, walked to the office door, locked it, lowered the blinds, and returned to his chair. His expression had completely changed. "Miss," he paused, "you need to sit down. I already was." He took a slow breath. "Your grandfather established a family trust nearly 12 years ago." I frowned. "My parents handled his finances. They handled some of them." He slid another document across the desk. This one remained under attorney supervision. The papers explained something Grandpa had never mentioned. He hadn't simply saved money. He had built a trust designed to protect one beneficiary, me. Not because he expected me to become wealthy, because he expected me to be alone. The manager spoke gently. He left detailed instructions. He handed me a letter written in Grandpa's uneven handwriting. "If you're reading this inside the bank, then life probably became harder than I hoped." I had to stop reading for a moment. People often mistake kindness for weakness. You spent years trying to deserve love that should never have depended on usefulness. The tears came quietly, no dramatic sobbing, just relief. The trust wasn't limitless wealth. It included investment accounts, a modest rental property, and enough savings to give me stability if I managed them responsibly. There were conditions: financial education, annual reviews, professional oversight. Grandpa hadn't given me an escape. He had given me a foundation. The manager spent the next hour explaining everything patiently. When I finally walked outside, nothing around me had changed. The streets were still cold. Christmas lights still hung from balconies. Families were still celebrating. Only I had changed. I rented a small apartment a week later. The rental income from Grandpa's property covered part of my expenses while I rebuilt my career. I learned more about budgeting, taxes, leases, and investments than I ever expected. Months passed before my parents called. They had heard someone handling estate paperwork had mentioned the trust. Their voices sounded softer than I remembered. My sister even apologized for what she'd said that morning. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't need to decide immediately. Forgiveness wasn't the same as reopening every door. We met once in a quiet cafe. Nobody argued, nobody raised their voice. When they hinted that Grandpa would have wanted the family to stay together, I answered as calmly as I could. I think he wanted everyone to take responsibility for their own choices. No one replied. There wasn't much left to say. Every Christmas since then, I visit Grandpa's grave before I go home. Not my parents' house, my home. I bring a thermos of coffee, brush away whatever snow has settled on the stone, and sit there for a little while. He didn't save me by making me rich. He saved me by believing I was worth preparing for long before I believed it myself. That turned out to be the greatest inheritance he ever left me.